Hi everyone, welcome to the Witching Week. Today is episode number 94. Today I've got a selection of mysterious, funny and spooky stories for you. We are getting closer to Halloween and to Samhain, so grab a cup of tea, get comfy, put some incense on and we'll explore the Witching Week. Hi everyone, thank you for being here, thank you for watching, welcome to the Witching Week. Every Friday we get together for a cup of tea and a bit of a chinwag and we talk about the changing of the weather and the seasons, the turn of the wheel and any witchy topics that might come up. So we're nearly at Samhain, welcome. Today, this episode is going to be mainly sort of weird and wonderful stories that have naturally been in the news in the last week. It has been a really, really strange week. I'm guessing that there are more stories popping up that are perhaps a bit weird or a bit wonderful, precisely because Halloween and Samhain are coming up. But there seems to have been an abundance of them this week, so my job was really, really easy today. So how are you all doing? Have you had a good week? Today I am drinking mango and strawberry from Twinings, a little fruit tea as always, and I am burning some good vibes. That is the vibe we're going for today, some good energy, some happy thoughts. So I don't know if you can tell, possibly, but it's really, really dark today. And I'm doing this video a little bit later than I normally would, but I film it in the morning to get it up for the afternoon. So it gives you an indication of just how dark things are. And I've actually got a candle because it's so dark in here. I'm sat in front of a window, so I've got that natural light, but the background is much darker than it normally is. So the perfect backdrop for some weird and wonderful stories. So what have you all been up to in this last week? How has it been? How are you doing? Well, last weekend we went into Peterborough and they had some Diwali celebrations going on. So Diwali actually falls on the 31st of October this year, so the same date as Samhain and Halloween, and it begins at sunset, so very, very similar to us as pagans. So they had a big stage set up. So just to give you an idea of where I am in the world, I'm not too far from Peterborough and I'm not too far from Leicester, and we have some big Asian populations there. So throughout the year there are all sorts of festivals. It's really, really lovely. I love it. And Diwali is the biggest Hindu festival. So out of all the festivals all year, that is the biggest one. So it runs this year, it's 5 days. It runs from the 29th of October until the 3rd of November. And Lakshmi Puja is the biggest event. So that is the main event. So yeah, I had a little read up about Diwali. I knew it was a festival of light, and specifically it takes its name from the lamps that are put outside a Hindu's home that symbolise the inner light that protects from darkness. So I think this is really, really lovely, and this festival is as important to Hindus as Christmas might be to Christians, and I would say as Samhain is to pagans. So I learned a few facts about Diwali. So it happens on a night where there is no moon, so it is the new moon on the 31st of October, and amongst other things, it celebrates Lakshmi. So she is the goddess of wealth and prosperity. Now there are some geographical differences. In Bangladesh apparently they celebrate Kali more so than Lakshmi, and it is the end of the harvest season, so we can draw a parallel there with Samhain. There are fireworks and plenty of lights, and it is a victory sort of over good over evil. knowledge over ignorance, those sorts of things, and food is a major focus, as it is with all the best festivals. So I'm actually wondering if instead of my Samhain celebrations, I should be somewhere else instead this 31st of October, but I will be at home. I'll be at home having my dumb supper. But if you are watching and you do celebrate Diwali, then I'm wishing you an absolutely fabulous time. And we did actually watch some of the celebrations when we were there in Peterborough. There was some singing and some dancing. There were lots of street vendors, so there was food and jewellery and stuff like that to buy, and it was really lovely. So yeah, celebrations will start this week and we'll run through into next week. So if you are celebrating, have a lovely time. So while we were there, we popped into Peterborough Cathedral. I was going to say Peterborough Cathedral. Now we've lived here a long time. We've lived here coming up for 6 years now, and we have quite often wandered outside the cathedral. It is an absolutely humongous building, and it reminds me of something out of like Warhammer 40,000. It's so impressive from the outside, but we've never actually been inside, and I've always wanted to go in because at the very least they have, and I think this is quite amazing, they have the grave of Catherine of Aragon there, the Queen of England, or as Justin calls her, Catherine of Aragon, which is an entirely different concept altogether. But she was Henry VIII's first wife, and she was the Queen of England. She was from Spain, and she was absolutely adored by the English people. Now, unfortunately, she did give birth to Mary, but she did not produce a male heir. And Henry VIII got quite frustrated with this, and eventually he fell in love with Anne Boleyn, who he is said to have been completely obsessed with. So he wanted to divorce her, and indeed he did manage to get their marriage annulled. And she died ultimately. She died of cancer some years later. She died of cancer about 5 months before Anne Boleyn was actually executed. So he did go on to marry Anne Boleyn. She was Queen of England as well for 3 years, and she died not that long after Catherine of Aragon. And I think the saddest thing about all of this is that it said that Catherine of Aragon, she never said a bad word about Henry VIII, despite how he treated her. She loved him, she respected him, he was the king, and he did her dirty, really. But the people continued to love her, they continued to see her really as the Queen of England. And they went on to mourn her when she died of cancer in 1536. One of her heraldic symbols is actually the pomegranate. So this is a symbol of Spain, but it also represents fertility, beauty, and eternal life. So I think this is really poignant, really quite profound and very sad, because she, you know, in terms of it being a symbol of fertility, well, she did have a baby, but she didn't have a male heir. And in terms of eternal life, well, even to this day, people take pomegranates to Peterborough Cathedral and leave them in a couple of gold dishes that are on her grave, and they go and give her their respects to her. So we got to see the grave, and I have to say I felt really, really moved. I don't know why I feel so connected to a woman who lived so many hundreds of years ago. Perhaps it's just that, you know, life can be difficult for women. Many women experience sadness at the hands of men that they love, and I just really sort of feel this sadness for her. And I think it says a lot about her character that, you know, as awfully as she was treated, she still held this great respect for her king, her husband. So I was really glad to visit this, and I think that was a real highlight of my week, really. So there's been some interesting things in the news this week, as I explained in the intro, lots of weird and wonderful stories. and I haven't really had to do much work in terms of looking for interesting things to talk about. First of all, we had a story about tar balls that have been washing up on some of Australia's most iconic beaches. So we're talking Bondi Beach, we're talking Gordons Bay, and several other sort of notorious and famous beaches. So they do think that weathered oil is a component. These tar balls are sort of various sizes. I'll see if I can put a picture up. And there are bituminous ingredients, including fatty acids, but some of them have been fluorescent, which indicates organic compounds. So they're undergoing testing at the moment. They did actually close a number of beaches while they cleared them up, and they wanted to initially get some reports back on what they were before, it was safe to open the beaches again. But very, very mysterious. Now, the problem I have with stories like this is we always hear about them in the initial stages, but very often we don't actually get the follow-up report. So it will be interesting to see if anything comes from this. But yeah, very, very weird, and not a phenomenon that's been seen before. I never get around to drinking my tea, so I'm going to try and do that today. So going from the mysterious to the downright weird and hugely inappropriate, like I literally don't know what these people were thinking. A children's play centre has apologised. You might have seen this story. A children's play centre in Cirencester has apologised for its Halloween decorations. So within its soft play, so not in the cafe where all the mums are sitting, actually inside the soft play where children go inside, they have hung some sort of homemade decorations that look like body bags, and they look very real and quite scary, to be honest. Someone obviously got a bit too enthusiastic, forgot they were decorating a children's play centre, and just totally took leave of their senses. When you look at the pictures, you're just like, what on earth were they thinking? And the poor parents that were taking their children to soft play didn't want to have to explain to their children what they were and kind of what they represented, and obviously complaints were made. The play centre has won awards, so would like to put it out there, and they have apologised. What I think is the most shocking about this story is that apparently they charge up to £11.75 for a child to get in. I think that's the most shocking thing about this story. Now, I know things have changed. Everything has gone up in price so much, except for wages and except for, types of, incomes. So whether that be benefits or wages or payments for having children, such as child tax credits, whatever. I know things have changed massively, but £11.75 is a lot of money these days. I think it was about £2 or £3, maybe even less, maybe, like £1.50 to take my daughter to a soft play centre, and you could be in there for literally for hours. You go there in the morning for sort of 9 o'clock, paid to get in, and you're just paying for your child, and then you have lunch there, and then you continue playing throughout the afternoon. So £11.75, shocking. One expert did actually reveal that the true horrors of Halloween in terms of play centres and children's costumes and parties is actually the nits. They get caught up in the material, and then, children play closely together and they jump from head to head, and the lurgy. So yeah, I'm definitely much more scared of those things as an adult than I am some decorations. But obviously, can you imagine being maybe a 5 or a 6-year-old going to a children's play centre and seeing body bags hung up? Not very nice at all. Not that you would necessarily know what they were, but they just look dark and foreboding, don't they? And it's just not a nice atmosphere to create. Halloween is supposed to be fun. For play centres, it's supposed to be Halloween and not Samhain. So there we go. So the next story, and this one is equally quite shocking, I think, but a Polish funeral home have had to apologise. They had what they've called an unexpected technical failure, and a dead body has actually come out of a hearse and slid into traffic in the street. So there's a couple of things about this that just sort of highlight the fact that sometimes, and I'm not saying that I'm fully out on this concept, but sometimes I ask myself, are we living in a simulation? And the reason I say that is because, first of all, it slid out onto a pedestrian crossing, which, you know, as awful and as serious this is, you have to have like a little bit of a snigger at that. But then secondly, the funeral home was called Hades Funeral Home. Hades, perhaps it's pronounced differently in Poland, perhaps it's a name, perhaps it doesn't actually respond to or sort of represent the underworld, perhaps it's not Hades in the way that we think of Hades, but that's how it's spelled. So Hades Funeral Service, and it caused a crash. So you have to think to yourself, like, this is absolutely bonkers. Like, you know, they could have been called someone else's funeral service. I can't think of any Polish names off the top of my head, but, you know, like Smith's funeral service. But no, it was Hades Funeral Service, and the body slid onto a pedestrian crossing. So I don't want to laugh at that story at all, because obviously for the family involved, that's absolutely shocking, and shocking for the person, you know, driving along that then saw the body and had a crash. Just horrible for everybody involved. But it's spooky, it's, you know, it's a story for Halloween, isn't it? On to the next story, and they were just popping up this week like anything. And this isn't stories, you know, linking from one to another. This is separate stories that have all been in the news this week. And we go to Monmouthshire now, so in the UK, and a priest was caught making a Zoom call while he was driving to a funeral. So apparently he'd entered a council meeting via Zoom, and they noticed that he was driving. He was a Conservative councillor, and he was driving along, and obviously using Zoom, he must have had his camera on, or maybe they could hear. But anyway, the Labour councillor asked him, "Are you driving?" And he said, "Yes, but I'm listening intently." Now, there's just so many levels to this, isn't there? Like, okay, so you're listening intently, so that means that you are not concentrating on the road, but also you're on your way to a funeral. Your mind should be on that, really. You should be paying attention, you should be focused, you should be paying attention to what you're doing. And yeah, maybe, just maybe, the meeting should have happened at another time, or you know, you just weren't available. So I had a hello what moment when I read that story. I mean, to me, that one's nearly as shocking as the other ones, really, to be honest. So our next story is really quite grisly. And we go over to the United States now, and we go to Kentucky. And a poor Kentucky man who had been declared brain dead woke up during organ harvesting. So I'm not actually sure at which stage of surgery he had got to, but he had got to the operating table. And I think this is everybody's worst nightmare, isn't it? So Anthony Thomas T.J. Hoover II, bless him, his case is still under investigation. He was taken into hospital in 2021. And he'd had a drug overdose, and the doctors had said that he lacked reflexes and that there was no brain activity. And this chap had actually given previously his permission for his organs to be harvested should he die at any point. And some of the details are a bit unclear on this story. It sounds like at some point there were reports of his eyes opening and him following family members around the room with his eyes, and they were told, oh, it's just reflexes. So we've gone from him having no reflexes and no brain activity to some movement and him watching them and the doctor saying, no, there's no reflexes, which seems contradictory. So anyway, they were prepping him for surgery, and again, it's not entirely clear from the article that I read, but it sounds like a doctor declared him not ready because at some point he woke up. But between this and it happening, he got wheeled down to theatre at some point, and he got as far as the operating table. The article doesn't go into detail, but apparently he woke up thrashing and he was visibly crying, and so of course the procedure was stopped. So obviously there are some checks and processes that need to be made and need to be reassessed, because this is a horrible situation. And I don't know if he went on to live or whether he died. I don't know if that was like a dead cert, which, excuse the pun, which is why they were doing this in the first place. I don't actually know, but yeah, how really horrible and grisly. Sorry about that one. I think maybe I need to put a trigger warning on this video. So over to a mysterious creature now, back in the UK. And Bristol Zoo have caught on their nighttime cameras some images of a creature that they have not been able to identify. Now, I thought this was maybe a bit of a Halloween joke to begin with, but there are pictures. I'll share the pictures. It doesn't appear to be. There is an animal which appears to have 4 legs and some wings, and they declared it impossible to identify. But it is thought that this is probably a muntjac deer. And the reason I smiled at this story when I saw it this week is the fact that I told a story over in Patreon about an experience that I had here at home that my husband and I can't explain. We had our own cryptid experience. Many of you that are over on our Patreon, you watched this video and several theories were put forwards. And one of those is that we saw some sort of like polecat, or not a ferret, but you know, something in that family. I think they're called mustelids, aren't they? And definitely not. It was like really flat and really long and really fluffy. But anyway, if you want to hear that story, then come and join us over on Patreon. And it's one of the videos that I have up on there. But yeah, so it does look like a muntjac. Muntjacs are small and they are deer-like. Well, they're deer, but this mystery creature is a deer-like creature. But yeah, it does appear to have some wings. Maybe that's just like a trick of the camera, or maybe it moved very quickly in blood. I don't know. But anyway, I really love this story. I love the fact that we can see things, fairly frequently. There's often stories of sightings of things or mysterious creatures. And I would imagine that, 99.9% of the time, there is a logical explanation as to what it is, but I think it just adds a little bit of fun to our lives. So one of the things that I've watched this week, I watched Woman of the Hour on Netflix. So this is a film about a real story about a serial killer in the United States back in the 70s. And the thing that drew me to it is we have a bit of a family joke about Pitch Perfect. So we joke that, we all really love it. Even my husband loves it because it's just so bad that it's good. And if you've ever seen the Pitch Perfect films, they're brilliant syndicate films. And, some of the bits in it are really cheesy, in particular, some aspects of Anna Kendrick's character. But anyway, she has produced and starred in this film. So she is the main producer for Woman of the Hour. And I was quite drawn by that. I wanted to see, she's probably, I don't know, perhaps she was responsible for producing Pitch Perfect. She's probably produced other things, I'm sure, and she's probably done a cracking job. But I was really just quite sort of, what's the word I'm after today? Just quite intrigued and wanted to see what a film produced by her would look like, and what she would be like as a different style of character. She wouldn't really appear in any of the films that I would tend to watch, and Pitch Perfect definitely is an anomaly, and it's the sort of thing that we would watch with the kids. But I wouldn't generally go for sort of the films that she would generally act in. So I really wanted to see what it would be like. I like anything based on a true story, to be honest. And also I knew it was set in the 70s and it appeared to have quite a 70s vibe. So I watched it and I have to say it is brutal. It's not very pleasant at all, but it was a really good film and I did enjoy it. So if you're looking for a film to watch at the weekend, you don't mind the subject of serial killers, it is really difficult, isn't it? Because I never like the fact, and I said this before last week about me watching the case of the Menendez brothers with Justin on Netflix. I don't like the fact that when we watch these things, we are kind of almost giving attention, aren't we, to, you know, these sick individuals. I tried to focus on the victims and the fact that their story should be told and they should be remembered. But if you don't mind the topic and you fancy, you know, a horror film, I guess it's a horror / thriller, then, and you know, you're looking for something for perhaps for Halloween, then yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I think she did a really good job actually. So yeah, well done, Anna Kendrick. I'm actually a bit of a fan, even though she's like the antithesis really of everything that I sort of enjoy normally. But again, we do have a bit of a love for, I don't even want to say a love-hate relationship. We have a bit of a love for Pitch Perfect because it is just so bad. That is really good. Anyway, I'm going to move on now. So yesterday, Chat magazine came out and I am on the front cover again. I have to say, I did not know what the headline was going to be, either on the front or inside the magazine. It says there are hundreds of bodies in my garden and I love it. So Chat magazine approached me about interviewing me about, you know, living on a cemetery, and I agreed. But I did not come up with a headline, which is probably a little bit sensationalist for me. I mean, they always are, but this one is just a bit like, ooh. But anyway, I'll just find the page. There is a double page spread, and I have to say that this headline is genius. Rightmove. We did find our house on Rightmove UK, so I thought that was very, very clever, very funny, and yeah, check it out. You've only got a week, I think, because this is, let's have a look. Yeah, it says issue 44, so I think it is weekly, and it comes out on a Thursday, and this is not like a special Halloween, well, I mean, it is a Halloween version of this one, but it's not like Chat, It's Fate or Spirit and Destiny, which I think is finished now actually. I don't think they run that one anymore. But yeah, this is just the regular Chat one, not the Halloweeny sort of spooky Chat one. But it has got Halloween stories, and yeah, its date is the 31st of October, so it comes out a week before. So next Thursday they will have a different one on the shelves. So if you want to have a look at the one with me in, then you need to go grab it now, because you've got less than a week to go. What else is going on? Yeah, so following on from that, talking of Samhain, I just want to take a moment to wish you all an absolutely fabulous Samhain. I don't think this year, looking back at the witching weeks we've just done, we haven't actually spoken about Samhain an awful lot this year, have we? I think that's because I have done such a lot of work over on Patreon on Samhain, and also obviously we've been running these now for sort of nearly 2 years, so I would have covered Samhain in last year's The Witching Week. So if you want to learn more about Samhain, it is worth checking out the videos from last year. So they all have the date on, so you want to find the ones that run up to Samhain, so like maybe 3 or 4 round about there, and I do tend to put in the description what we're talking about, or in the titles. So if you want to learn more about Samhain, then head back to last year's videos. They won't be quite as streamlined as I've got it now, and I think as well at that point they were a bit blurred because I hadn't quite got all my text sorted. You can head over to me on Instagram as well, and scroll back several years. I've been on there a while, or come and join us on Patreon. There is still plenty of time. We've still got a week left, and you will get all the stories and all the Samhain posts that have already been posted. That's the brilliant thing about Patreon, is that the minute you join, you have access to everything that's already on the site, and you'd be very, very welcome. We're a safe, friendly community with a view for education. So we're not like other spaces on the internet where people end up really debating or arguing. That's not the vibe that I'm going for. We are friendly, we're welcoming, we're accepting, and yeah, we all get along fabulously. So one other thing then, before I want to do some cards, I just want to say that at the end of October we are heading into fox hunting season. It runs from the end of October through to about April, and this won't affect many of you if you perhaps don't live in this country or you perhaps live in bigger cities. But for me, very much, I live in the countryside, and when I go out and about on a Saturday and sometimes other days, I do run into the hunt, and quite often it is not pleasant. And I'm basically putting out a little bit of an appeal to ask you guys, if you can, if you've got just a few spare pennies, to perhaps consider supporting your local sab group or the Hunt Saboteurs Association. I am very anti fox hunt, and I've always been very pro talking about it. And I do actually have a friend who used to be a hunt sab. She was not a fox hunter, she was a hunt sab. And I know I have some inside knowledge about the fact that the law is followed rigorously by the hunt sabs. I've also been and protested with them myself, and I understand and see firsthand the laws that are broken by the fox hunters in our area, in the town that I live in, and their absolute disregard for people's gardens, people's pets, and people using the road. They are often causing a danger and a hazard. So now is a great time to give to the Hunt Saboteurs Association, or to look up your local Hunt Sab group through them. You can find Facebook pages for the Hunt Sab groups as well. You can see their posts, you can judge for yourself, you can see some of the videos of some of the treatment that they receive, and they are following the law. They have to be able to do the work that they do. And I am a very pro-social person who believes in following the law, and I would not follow people that I didn't think were. They are actually upholding our law, because it is actually illegal to hunt foxes with dogs in the UK. And I am very much aware of how the local people break those rules and get around it because of their position in society. I've also met quite a few of the characters when I have been peacefully protesting, not saying a word, joining groups of people that have answered the Hunt Sab's call, and I've been asked to go along on Boxing Day and New Year's Day to just stand quietly in protest, not even necessarily, connected to them. And I've been there with other ordinary people from all walks of life, including some counsellors and some people, from the council. And I have witnessed and been on the receiving end of the abuse and the intimidation, and then I've seen those people round town afterwards and felt intimidated by them. So I am very much a supporter of the work of the Hunt Saboteurs Association and the brave sabs that go out each week, at least once a week, and have to put up with abuse and assaults. So at this time of year, you can buy Christmas cards, you can buy merch all year round, and it's a great time to make a donation to their pot for, fuel, camera equipment, and vehicles, which unfortunately get damaged all of the time by these awful people. So if you want to support a charity, or you're wondering where you can put your support this winter, please consider the Hunt Saboteurs as fox hunting season comes to an open, as it comes to a start. So on that note, I am going to do some cards for this week. We're going to have a look at the energy ahead, and I'm wishing you all the most fabulous Samhain. Let me know in the comments if you've got your plans finalised now. I know sometimes it can take right up to the last minute to really get sorted and know what you're doing. To be honest, it's the same for Yule and Christmas for us. So let me know in the comments. We are having a dumb supper. We are definitely doing that, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I need to get my backside in gear. and yeah, get some plans underway. But I've got it okayed by the big boss, who is going to be working in London that day, but we'll come back and we'll have our ceremony. So I've picked 4 cards for today, and the cards we have are the 6 of Swords, we have the 4 of Pentacles, we have the Moon, and we have this lovely card, the 10 of Cups, the 10 of Cups. So that one came out last, so that feels like a bit of a happy ending. So yeah, when we look at the first card, we look at the 6 of Swords, and we are very much getting the energy of a situation that you are moving away from. And I feel like this is in relation to money. So this is a situation that has come to a bit of a head and you are now moving away from it. The thing here is you might not have had a choice. It might have been forced upon you. It might have been a decision perhaps that you made that you didn't want to make. The point is, it feels painful, it doesn't feel all that brilliant, but it is for your higher good. And you are moving from choppy waters, if you like, difficult waters, to much smoother waters, so happier times. You're moving from difficult times to easier times. This hasn't been an easy transition at all. I do feel it is in relation to money, which is going to improve. The situation is going to improve. Maybe this hasn't actually happened yet, and maybe you're in a situation where you feel like you have a decision to make over money, and that it is difficult, and that you know in your heart of hearts that if you make this decision, it will ultimately be the best thing for you, but it's just very, very difficult to come to that decision. I will say that there are some things that are perhaps not quite clear to you yet. So if this has happened, and this has been a situation that has gone down, you're not actually in receipt of all the facts at the moment. So there will be things that will become clear. There will be things perhaps that won't ever become clear to you and will remain a mystery. But, you know, at the moment, your focus is just on dealing with this situation and working your way through it. It's not necessarily to have all the reasons and to have all the answers. And the reason why I say it's not necessarily important is because ultimately there is going to be a happy ending to this. There is going to be a good solution. You are going to be in a much happier place. You are going to be so much more fulfilled, and you are going to have a huge weight lifted off of your shoulders. And perhaps if you've been hanging on to money really, really tightly before, perhaps because you haven't had much of it, it's definitely going to come to you. There's going to be more balance, and you are going to be able to enjoy life that little bit more. So good news. I always feel like my readings come out with good news. I always feel like even if there's something really, really terrible happening, or, you know, something that's not easy to navigate, I always feel like ultimately, you know, there is a good outcome. And I don't know if that's just because it's me picking the cards and I am an optimist, I don't know. And I do tend to strive for, you know, living in the moment and always seeing the best of things. But we are definitely talking a situation that is not so brilliant, that's very hard to navigate, that is going to become much easier with time. So whether that's happened already, or perhaps you're faced with a decision and perhaps you're being forced into a decision, you know, don't worry. The outcome for everyone is that this is going to work out so much better. So this message might resonate with you, it might not. If it doesn't, then it's not for you. It will be a message for someone. So you don't have to watch these videos. You know, if you're not a tarot reader or you're a novice at witchcraft and you think, well, that doesn't relate to me at all, this is rubbish, then it's not a message for you. So on that lovely happy note, I'm going to wish you again a really, really fantastic Samhain, and just generally have an awesome week. We are now heading into the darker part of the year proper. The clocks actually, what do? They fall back in the autumn, spring forward, fall back. So it's going to be much darker soon. It's going to be darker in our evenings. I think it'll get a little bit, will it get a little bit lighter in the morning initially? Yeah, I guess it will. And then it's going to get darker. So That happens on the last Sunday of the month in October, and then I think the last Sunday of the month in March. But yeah, so we are entering the darkest, coldest part of the year, maybe not the coldest, excuse me, as we work our way towards winter solstice. So let's get Samhain done first. But yeah, we only have about, I guess, 7 weeks till the winter solstice. Is crazy. And then we can celebrate the return of the light, although we won't feel it, will we, initially? We've got to get through that January, February, March period, which are quite brutal. They definitely are here on the cemetery, so we're all getting prepared for that. So enjoy your Samhain celebrations. They are serious and beautiful and profound, but there's always a little bit of space for fun, and we have that with a little sprinkle of Halloween. Maybe you celebrate one, maybe you celebrate the other, maybe you celebrate both, maybe it's neither. Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear. But until next Friday, take care of yourselves and each other. Lots of love, bye.